I am Skyping with a good longtime friend, folks. So come close to the radio. You don't want to miss it. It's a book that you must get. You must have. Andrew Klavan is with me, longtime friend, screenwriter, and best-selling author. He has a brand new book, The Great Good Thing. A secular Jew comes to faith in Jesus. Andrew, good morning, sir.
Hey, Jesse, it's good to see you.
You too. You look well. You look happy, and you've been working out.
I'm really flattered you brought me on for the manhood hour. That just makes me feel good, you know.
That's right. How you doing? How you been?
I've been great. I've been really busy. I'm doing a podcast at the Daily Wire. I've got this book coming out, and I'm starting a new book, so I'm really buried, but it's been a lot of fun.
Congratulations on your book. It's really interesting. I want to know, you grew up as a Jew, right, in New York?
Right. Yeah.
And then you became secular, meaning that you didn't believe in God at all, or what happened there?
Yeah, well, what happened was I was raised in Jewish tradition. Sorry. So I was sent to, Hebrew school, and I was bar mitzvahed and all this. But my parents didn't believe in God. I mean, my mom was a stone atheist to the day she died. I mean, she was the most convinced atheist I think I've ever met. And my father was more a guy who would like hedge his bets. He didn't want to mess around with the big Jew in the sky, sort of. But he was, he didn't really believe. So as a kid, I started thinking, well, why am I doing all this? Why do I have to leave school, which I hated anyway, and then go to Hebrew school, which I really hate? Why do I have to stand up in front of people at my bar mitzvah and say I believe stuff that I don't believe? And I talk about in the book, when I was bar mitzvahed in my neighborhood, you got all this jewelry and money and stuff. And about 6 months after my bar mitzvah, and this will drive you crazy, but I took the box full of jewelry, thousands of dollars, Jesse, full of jewelry and money and savings bonds, and I threw it away because I was so ashamed of myself for having stood up and said this stuff that I didn't believe.
Wow.
So after that, I just wanted nothing to do. It wasn't Judaism. It was religion. I wanted nothing to do with hypocrisy. I wanted nothing to do with lying about things and being told what I should believe. And so I won't say that I was a complete atheist because I just figured that you don't know, but I was a practicing atheist.
Yeah.
I mean, God had no role in my life.
And did your parents know you threw everything away that you received? Did they know about that?
No, my father knew that I was very upset about the fact that I was becoming estranged from Judaism. But no, I waited till everybody went to sleep. My house went to bed. My father did a morning radio show, and my house went to bed very early. And around midnight, I got up when everyone was in bed, and I kind of crept downstairs in my pajamas, and I stuffed it into the garbage outside really deep so the garbage men would come and take it, and they wouldn't see it. It was a big leather box. And I never told anybody about this until I was in my 30s, when I just happened to mention it to a friend, and his eyes got wide, and he said, "That's an amazing story." And that really started me thinking about what an amazing story it really was, because I just hadn't thought about it for a long time.
That is an amazing story. You write that you had a troubled childhood. Can you tell us what you mean by that?
Well, yeah, I mean, I had a very difficult relationship with my father, especially, and it's painful to talk about because my father was a good man. He wasn't a bad guy. He wasn't abusive in the way people can be abusive. He hit me maybe more than he did my brothers, and something about me really bugged him. And he would say things like, he would just tear you down all the time. He was a very funny man, very witty guy, and he was always making jokes, and anything you wanted to do, he didn't think you could do, and all this. And he was always trying to stop you from being who you were. And so that, how that works, that becomes part of you. Yeah. And even after you're away from your father, you've got that voice in your head always telling you that you're a bad guy and that you can't do it and nothing was going to work. And that just drove me into depression, and the depression would kind of circle around. Like I'd be happy for a while, and then it would come back around like a whip and just wrap itself around my throat.
Yeah.
And it got so bad that after a while, I really did start to think about killing myself, And what was really difficult was I couldn't accomplish anything. I couldn't get anything done because every time I would do something, I would hear my father's voice in my ear telling me I couldn't do it or shouldn't do it. And I never knew whether I was fighting with myself or fighting with him. It was really confusing.
That's amazing. And were you the oldest child or the youngest?
No, I was the middle child. I had younger brothers. I have younger brothers who were twins, and then I have an older brother. And so, I kind of got it from all sides, basically. My older brother, was a great guy, and I love him to death. But when we were kids, of course, he would pick on me, and then because he would pick on me, I wasn't as happy to pick on my little brothers,
Yeah.
because I knew what it was like.
Yeah.
So I was just kind of caught in the middle.
You write that you were alienated, filled with rage, depressed, and even suicidal. Tell me about because I've been there too with the suicide thing.
Yeah,
As
I
a matter
know.
of fact, I tried to do it. I took some pills over a girl or something. But what did it feel like to be suicidal? Was that voice speaking to you, or what prevented you from going all the way with it?
Well, the worst night I ever had was, a night when my writing was going badly. I couldn't sell anything. I'd written a book and it had failed. I had a wife whom I love to death. I mean, we've been married 40 years, and I'm just crazy about my wife. We had a new baby daughter. I kept feeling I should be happy. I should be happy. But I just kept thinking everyone would be better off without me.
Yeah.
And that was really the thing. And I didn't know, I kept saying this to myself. It was like a repeated tape in my head. I kept saying, I don't know how to live. I don't know how to live. And there was one night when I was sitting by myself, drinking and smoking, and a baseball game was on in the background. And I was just thinking over and over again, I don't know how to live. And I was starting to think, and any psychologist will tell you, this is the dangerous moment. I was starting to think about how I was going to do it, how I was going to kill myself.
Yeah.
And while I was doing this, a ball player that I really loved named Gary Carter, he was a catcher for the New York Mets, Hall of Fame catcher. He was a devout Christian. And he would occasionally come on and he would talk about Jesus just to embarrass reporters. He would say, well, praise Jesus, because he loved to see the reporter's face get uncomfortable. But of course, to me, who didn't believe, that made me uncomfortable. So I wouldn't listen to that. But this one day, he didn't do that. He had run out of a single, and the interviewer said, how can you run when your knees are so damaged? And Carter said, sometimes you just have to play in pain. And the minute he said it, I realized it was like a supernatural answer to my question.
Yeah.
How do you live? Sometimes you just have to play in pain. And that was the last time I ever thought about suicide, because those words would always come back to me. And it only occurred to me, Jesse, when I wrote this book, that's the only time it occurred to me that he was a Christian and he was speaking out of his Christian heart in a way that I could understand. It really was a God-sent moment. I'm convinced of it.
Wow, that's an amazing story, Andrew.
Yeah. It is amazing. I wrote when he died. I actually cried just because he had, without ever meeting me, he had been the vehicle of that message to me.
Wow. Did you ever talk to your father about the way he made you feel and what he had done to you?
I would try. We had many conversations because, like I said, he was a good guy. I like to think I'm a good guy, and we reached a separate peace. We reached a point where we stopped fighting with each other all the time, which is how I spent my teenage years, just fighting with him. But we never became close. And even though I put my anger at him aside, it took me many years to forgive him. It really did. It was only in Christ that I could forgive him, because I did realize that he was acting out of his own pain and out of his own worldview, which I think gave him a lot of pain. And whenever I would try to talk to him, he would suck me back into that world of running me down and attacking me and all this stuff. And I just thought after a while, I'm not going to do it anymore. I'm just not going to do it. And so we just would talk about movies and, computers and stuff like that. And that was how we learned to get along. He was a very good grandfather, and I was very grateful for that.
So he's not living anymore? Is he dead?
He died in this. It's in the book. It's a dramatic story because I knew when I decided to get baptized, I knew he would explode. I knew it would just tear my greater family apart. He just hated Christianity, thought it was the enemy of the Jews. And I knew it would drive him crazy. And when he came to visit, he was in New York, and he and my mom came out to visit in California. I was thinking, I'm going to have to tell him because I'm on the radio, I'm on TV and all this stuff. And before I could tell him, he said, I've got to go home. I'm having double vision. And he went home, and it turned out to be a brain tumor. And I realized that I couldn't ruin the last 6 months of his life, basically, by telling him this thing that would break his heart. So I would come and visit him in New York, and that was also where the Episcopal priest who was training me for baptism, my old friend, lived. So I would have this double life, where I'd come and visit him, and then I'd go downtown and talk to the priest. And finally, you couldn't write this. Jesse, if I wrote this, you would call me up and say, take that out because it's too ridiculous.
Yeah.
It was finally the weekend that was both Passover and Easter when my father collapsed and was taken into the hospital. I happened to be in New York when it happened. And on the Thursday of Holy Week, which was also Passover that year, he passed away. And when I came back for his memorial a couple of months later, that's when I was baptized.
That's an amazing thing, man.
This is incredible.
You never know what people are going through and have gone through. That's amazing.
Yeah, it was like a split screen life,
Andrew, I got a text from my PR guy, and he said, Jesse, don't just keep saying Jew. Use Jewish sometimes.
Well, now you know.
I know. I didn't even know I was saying Jew, to be honest with you.
It sounds good to me.
Yeah. Andrew, before I get back into this conversation, I don't want to run out of time without giving out information about your book. How can people get it? How can they hear you on the radio? All the good things you're doing.
Oh, well, thanks. It's the book you can get on Amazon or any site. Hopefully it's in some bookstores too, The Great Good Thing. And I appreciate it. And if you like it, I hope you'll leave a review on Amazon because that's very helpful. And if you don't like it, just keep it to yourself.
That's right.
And you can hear my show Monday through Thursday on the Daily Wire. And it's posted on there. You just hit where it says podcast. And I've got a half-hour show 4 times a week.
You've been married 40 years, is that true?
I've been married. We've been together 40 years. Yeah, I've been married 36, I think it is. Yeah.
And so, how old are you? I didn't think you were that old.
I'm 62. Yeah.
Really?
I'm getting older every minute.
You look well. You don't look in your 60s.
Oh well, I appreciate that. I do. I have to say, I think that joy has a lot to do with that. I really do. I've had God has given me a lot of joy in Him, through Him, and I think that it keeps you young,
Yeah. I want to know, you and your father didn't really work out the issues completely. Do you have perfect peace within?
Do I have perfect peace within? I would say, I don't know if anything in life is perfect, but I have a lot of peace within. Ever since I came to Christ, I felt like it's the difference. People say, oh, I was lost and now I'm found. And I don't mean to make that sound like, oh, I was a drug addict or anything like that. It just makes a difference if you know where you're going.
Yeah.
Whether you're talking about a fork or a human being, if you don't know what it's for, you can't use it. And if you don't know what your life is for, you can't use it. And I think now that I do, I have to say, I was baptized about 12 years ago now. And about 3 weeks afterwards, my wife turned to me and she said, wow, you have totally changed. I mean, this is 3 weeks after baptism. She said, you have totally changed. You are so much more at peace than you ever were before. And I think it's true.
So I guess it's safe to say you might not have perfect peace, but you have a lot of peace now.
I do.
Yeah.
No question about it.
So what made you decide, let me ask this first. Once you become a Christian, are you still Jewish?
That's a very good question. I would say that in terms of religion, the thing about being a Jew is it's both a racial designation and a religion. And no, I mean, I never felt like a religious Jew until I found Christ. That's the weird thing, that Jesus connected me to my tradition and what those beliefs were. But I think any very devout Jew, like my friend Ben Shapiro, he would say, no, you're no longer a Jew. You're not practicing Judaism. That makes you not a Jew. You remain, of course, a racial Jew, for whatever that means. I guess it means you have a sense of humor or something. but that of course doesn't go away, and I would never want it to go away. I'm quite proud of it and feel really good about it.
And so what made you decide to become a Christian?
It's really interesting. Jesus had become a figure in my life through literature, and that's the only way. I didn't believe in him at all, but because I loved literature and reading books, and because Jesus and Christianity are at the center of so many classic Western books, he became an important figure in my life. But when I found God, when I realized there had to be a God in order for there to be morality, because I just didn't believe what people kept telling me, that one thing is as good as another, one culture is as good as another. It didn't make any sense to me. And when I realized there had to be a God, I started to pray. And when I started to pray, it changed my life. So I wasn't praying to Jesus. I had no religion at all. But it was 5 years of prayer. And at the end of that 5 years, I realized that my life had completely changed and that I was happier. My life was richer, deeper. I was more alive. And I went out one day in my car. I was driving in Santa Barbara in the hills. And I said to God, you changed my life, what can I do for you? Because you're God and I'm nobody, And almost like a voice, it wasn't quite spoken out loud, but almost like a voice in my head, I heard, now you should be baptized. And I said out loud at the windshield, I said, you got to be kidding me. Baptized, it's the furthest thing from my mind. But when I started to go back to the Bible and read the Bible, which I'd read many times as literature, when I went back to it in faith, I realized, oh, yes, this is what I believe. This is the truth. And that's the only reason, I don't know how you feel about this. I don't feel there's any good reason to believe in Christianity or anything else unless you believe it's true, And I came to feel that this was obviously the truth because it made sense of everything else in the world. And that's when I decided I had to become a Christian. It took me 5 months of self-examination before I could say that this was true because it was going to cause so many problems in my life, in my career, with my father, all these things. And so I really had to examine myself. And that's what I wrote the book about that self-examination.
I'm going to have you on my TV show because I need an hour with you about your book.
I would love to come, yeah.
Let me ask this. 2 quick answers because we run out of time. One is, were you close to your mother?
We had a more peaceable relationship, but she was a very distant person, I got 4 brothers. Not one of us really knows who she was.
Wow.
So I would say no, I was not really close to my mother.
Are you and your daughter close?
Very. Oh, my kids and I've got 2 kids, and we just are in touch all the time, and we love each other to death. Yeah.
You have a boy and girl or 2 girls?
I got a boy and a girl, and they really are. We really have it's wonderful. It's a true blessing. Yeah.
You write that in marriage you were shown the reality of love. Can you explain that in short for us? I'm sorry about rushing.
Yeah, no, I mean, it's a funny story. It's in the book. I won't tell it now, but I picked my wife up hitchhiking. She was hitchhiking. I had to run to get my car because she was so beautiful. I wanted to get my hands on her, So I ran, got my car, and I picked her up. The minute she sat down in the car, it was like a jigsaw puzzle piece going in. And I thought, oh, wow. And we were together within 2 weeks of that, 3 weeks. And we have had one fight in 40 years, Jesse. I mean, and it was like a 5-minute spat we had 25, 30 years ago, and so we have a very, very special relationship. When you have that, you start to realize, oh, wait, love is a real thing. Just because I feel it inside doesn't mean I'm not feeling something that's real. And all these people are trying to tell you, well, you feel morality inside, you have a conscience, but that's just something you were trained or something you were taught. It's society teaching you. But when you love somebody like that for 40 years, you think, wait a minute, this is real. I may be seeing it with my heart, but I'm seeing something real. And so that meant when I started to come to faith, I realized that was real too. That was seeing something real as well.
And your wife is a Christian?
I think she would call herself a Christian. She's not quite as into it as I am, but she was an agnostic or even an atheist most of her life. But when her mom died, she realized her mom died virtually in her arms. And she came home from that experience and she said, you know what? I saw her soul leave, and she started to believe from that point on. And she does go to church, and so, yeah, I'd call her a Christian.
The book is The Great Good Thing, A Secular Jew Comes to Faith in Jesus by Andrew Klavan. Andrew, that's what you have an amazing life, man. Wow.
So, I've read your book too, so I know you do as well, and I know you know what I'm talking about.
That's right. Well, thank you so much for coming on, and we're going to contact you soon to have you on the TV show because I want to talk to you for an hour.
Oh, I'd love to come on. I always like seeing you, Jesse.
Yeah, same here, man. Thank you so much, all right?
Take care.
All right now. Amazing, folks. 888-7753-773. I am overwhelmed right now. I really am.